Hey, what is going on, everybody? Boilon here, and in today's video we're going to be talking all about the brand new kits for the Bionic Avengers that were announced just the other day. And I've also gone over the Iron Man and Vision's base stats. I've done some math on that, and we've been able to see sort of what it really amounts to now and how high that's going to be. And let me tell you, it is pretty exciting. So I can't wait to share this with all of you. I want to go over the kits that we know from the blog post and kind of get my first thoughts about this team, though, and what we might be missing. So if you're ready to go, then let's boil this down. So we're going to start here and get my first thoughts about the blog post. This is the Tech Raid Team Assemble. So we're finally getting the Tech Raid Team that we've been wanting for so long. And some people did think that the Hulkbuster character was going to be part of a separate Power Armor 3.0, but no, it appears that he is a character for the Bionic Avengers, so he's going to be the first. It also explains later on in the blog post that we are going to be getting Vision, and then a fifth unnamed character that we don't know. Some people have been saying a Deathlock. I mean, honestly, I don't even care who it is at this point, because we're getting the Tech Raid Team, and that's the most important thing here to talk about. Also, for those of you who have missed it, they are going to be the upcoming team for Death, the Scourge event for Death, and the reason why I'm making this face is because, like, that's the Scourge number 4, and we haven't even finished figuring out who's going to be at the Scourge number 3. So they're already releasing information about Scourge Team 4, and yet we're not even anywhere close to that. So this is quite far in advance, but hey-oh, at least we have that information in advance. So let's talk about Hulkbuster's kit. He is, like, the de facto tank of this team, from what I understand. You know, he is a protector. You could read about all his stuff here. So Hulkbuster lands on the Bionic Avengers as a protector with high health and armor that aids his ability to mitigate enemy fire. On top of taking the enemy's hardest punches, Hulkbuster also gives a great deal of barrier. There's tons of barrier, and he taunts off Iron Man when he gets on low health as well. So his basic Rocket Fist, 300% damage, and then in raids, this barriers self and all allies for 5%, which I think will make for a very good striker, actually. If this character has 25% or more barrier, gain defense up for 2 turns. If this character has 50% or more barrier, gain 2 deflect. Gain an assist from a random Iron Man. We'll talk about Iron Man's change kit below. Special Piston Slam. Energy cost 4 to 4. So it's very short, actually. Attack primary and adjacent targets for 400% and apply offense down for 2 turns. So some pretty good solid debuffs here for 2 turns on a cooldown of 4, which is really nice. In raids, this clears all negative effects from himself in case he has it, and this is his taunt mechanic as well. And then he barriers everyone for 20%. Which is interesting is that actually it's all allies and not Bionic Avengers. However, the extra stuff, the ability energy, you know, is Bionic Avengers specifically, but, you know, there is some space that you could use him, you know, outside of his team if you so desire. You're probably not going to want to, but, like, for newer players, maybe, you might be able to get some use out of him there. So lots of ability energy being thrown around. His ultimate, Buster Barrage, cooldown of 6, attack all, and available at turn 1, attack all enemies for 360% damage, plus apply slow for 2 turns. So not only are you getting AoE slow for 2 turns, you're getting not quite AoE, but, you know, like multi-hit offense down for 2 turns. So really good debuffs coming out of Hulkbuster. Barrier yourself and all allies for 15% of this character's max health, and then an additional if they're Bionic Avengers, so 30% if they're Bionic Avengers, and then in raids it generates more energy for adjacent ones, and then speed up for 2 turns to Bionic Avengers in raids. If they have 3 or more, then this attack is unavoidable. So some crazy stuff going on. So this is like, you know, we don't know his stats yet. We don't know Hulkbuster's stats, but if his focus is good, which he should be with Vision, then he's going to have no problems landing these debuffs. Passive, built like iron. When this character or a Bionic Avenger ally gains ability energy, fills speed bar by 5%. So this is going to be pretty good, you know, that he's going to get more turns, which is nice. And, you know, his taunt's on a cooldown of 4, so it's not that bad either. That, again, he's taunting when Iron Man gets low hit points. And he drops a lot of these newer tanks, they clear the taunt if they're under 50% health, so that's fine too. And then he actually applies offense down for 2 turns to all enemies. So he actually debuffs them when he loses hit points, so that's kind of cool. In raids on spawn, barrier self for 30% to himself and the Bionic Avengers allies, although in raids, so keep that in mind. 50% max health passive and 50% to Bionic Avengers in raids. 25 plus 25 more in raids. Crazy kit. Very good. This is going to be a very good character. He's going to be giving some really good debuffs that the team needs. The team's going to need for doing in raids. The speed, super good for raids. Offense down, super good for raids. Pretty good kit all around. Looking forward to using him. And then the Iron Man updates. So we're going to skip ahead on the base stats because I do have that in the spreadsheet format, but I want to talk about the new stuff. So his basic attack does now apply defense down, but only for 1 turn, and it changes to 2 adjacent targets. So that's not bad. And then he's gaining that assist from Hulkbuster as well, and counterattack does not break this chain. So he's going to continue and apply defense down, which again is more debuffs from this team. His special rocket barrage, which before was just damage, now it's more damage, but then it prolongs the duration of all negative effects by 1, including trauma. Now I don't know if we're going to get trauma or not, but I still think this is an interesting nod anyways, because for newer characters, I know he's not a new character, but they were tending to not prolong all negative effects, including ability block and trauma. You know, Scarlet Spider's kit, for example, skips out a few of the debuffs, so, you know, this one is everything. Kind of like Doc Ock, which is very interesting. In raids, this generates 1 ability energy for adjacent Bionic Avenger allies. So I think this team is going to be very specific of where you put certain characters to get these adjacency energy. You know, hard to say right without the other characters, but that's going to be something that you're going to want to keep in mind. And it's unavoidable, of course. His Unibeam ultimate now actually does more stuff. It does 100% more damage. It generates ability energy, and in raids it generates for everyone, and it cannot be blocked or dodged. Now, I don't know if that's the same as being unavoidable, necessarily. I think it can still miss, so if he was blinded, but otherwise it should land unless he's blinded. I think that's what I'm getting at here. So, still an improvement of the damage, and overall, you'll see, when we get to the stats, it's going to hurt, it's going to hit really, really hard. And so his passive got a fair bit of an increase, especially to crit chance and crit damage. He's like the Spider-Punk in Raid, so he gives quite a bit of additional crit damage and crit chance to Bionic Avengers allies. So yeah, just kind of think about him as the Spider-Punk here in raids, and he gains 40% crit damage for himself. I'm probably going to use him as a raider still to pump up that crit damage even higher and guarantee that crit chance if it's not already like 100% after the raider. So that's what I'm planning on doing. For Vision, again, a pretty sizable increase. Let's talk about his skills, though. So, not a huge increase to his basic. It was already pretty good, but now it's guaranteed to chain to 2 adjacents. Before, I believe it was 50% to chain to a second target with the T4s, but now it can hit up to 3 targets, although you're probably going to require that T4 in it. It does 10% more damage and gains an assist from a random Vision ally. So this is where we know that we're getting Vision, which is the daughter of Vision, as one of the other characters. His special Dive Bomb now applies a ability block for 2 turns if they're tech. So screw you, Dr. Doom. You know, that's really going to get him out of the way, and this is going to be very good for Doom raids especially. And then it generates more ability energy for random Bionic Avengers who were not full at the start of the current turn, and then 1 to Vision as well. So that's pretty cool. His Solar Beam alt now does more damage, 50% more, and it applies bleed without requiring Scarlet Witch, which is cool. It reduces speed bar by 30%. 30% is pretty sizable. So, you know, it's kind of like an Eternals alt, you know, just one of them, of course, but, you know, still pretty good, and generates 1 ability. There's so much ability energy, you know, being tossed around by this team, and I can't wait to see the other 2 characters. If this character has 3 or more Bionic Avengers allies, this attack is unavoidable. So very, very strong, guaranteed basically to reduce that speed bar. And then finally, his passive, when in raids apply him, so you get the standard defense up for 2 turns to tech allies that he always had before, and now he gets immunity for 2 turns to self and the team in raids specifically. This is great for the start of each match, so that you're not going to get hit by, like, if you guys know in like Doom Raid 2, there's a lot of characters that give heal block, things like this. There's a Silver Surfer, I believe, on turn 1, so as long as the primary target, you know, that primary target might get hit, but the heal blocks should not land because of the immunity, so that's very helpful there. And then if the Vision is actually the recipient of that ability block, then he clears all of her negative status effects, so that's very good. He gives her death proof, and then focus. This is huge because on top of the base stats, this is also really big for the team because there's a lot of debuffs being thrown around by this team. So 50% focus in raids to the Bionic Avengers is very important. Now, we'll find out on Friday's blog post, you know, who the additional characters are, and that'll lead me into another video where I talk about the full team in its entirety. versatility in terms of like what they offer. If you guys remember, I did this for the Unlimited X-Men when I did buffs and debuffs and stuff and what they offer to the team. So those are the kind of things that you can expect for the video once we get more of the characters known, once we get their kits known, and I'll do that. But for the second half of the video here, I want to talk about the stats. So we're going to zoom in here, and we're going to talk about the Bionic Avengers stat rework, specifically Iron Man and Vision, with the passives that we know so far. So that's going to be Iron Man, Vision, and the Hulkbuster passive. And I've thrown this into a table. You might recognize the way that I do this before. And it's quite something. So let's start off with Iron Man. So all of this is in raid stats. So because a lot of the passives and a lot of the kits say in raid Bionic Avengers, so we're going to be assuming that these are going to be the stats that you're running in raids. It's still pretty good outside of raids, but it's not going to be as extreme as it is in raids. So keep that in mind. Okay, so let's get started. It's level 85, 7 yellow, 5 red, blue ISO 2, gear tier 15, and Stark Tech 25%. That's the stats that you're seeing on the screen right now. So, we got the old stats in and the new stats in based on the percentages that were listed on the blog post. And, you know, I'm not going to go through every single column, but you can see how I did it here. For the abilities column, I did add passive abilities from other characters. So, for example, here, I added in the 50% health for both Iron Man and Vision that they would get from Hulkbuster for using them together, because obviously that's what you're going to do. And then for the focus, I also added that in for Vision as well. And actually, I realized that, yeah, that's important there, so that you know the full totality of what the stats are going to look like. So let's start off by the top with the health for Iron Man. 634,000 with all of that included. That's equivalent to Shuri right now, the new Shuri. So that's a top 25 hit point rating, which is pretty good in my mind. You know, I think that's pretty good. I think that's pretty solid. His damage, though. So if you guys remember, I did a video on Thor when the Heroes Guardians got their rework. Now he's equivalent to OG Thor because he's getting a plus 20% additional damage when he has the full Bionic Avengers team. He gets 5% per member. And so that brings him on par with Thor and puts him in the top 5 for damage. So his Unibeam is going to hurt really effing hard. And so I don't know if this is going to like one-shot Doom in the Doom raid, but you know, it's still going to hit really hard and it's going to be really, really good. And so without the health, I also want to say that he's about top 70 without the Hulkbuster passive, the additional hit points that he gets in raids. But, you know, this is all in raids as well. His armor didn't change at all, but it seems like he didn't actually need it, that his armor stat was actually somewhat respectable. It is a top 20 stat alongside Capsam, so clearly that was like the only good stat he actually had, which is kind of funny. Now his focus got a 93% increase alongside the buff from Vision. You're now looking at a top 10 focus for Iron Man, which is pretty important because he's landing some debuffs. He's also trying to extend debuffs, which actually needs to pass a focus check as well. And so it's equivalent to Cloak here in a top 10. His resistance, and same with Vision actually, this is probably the only place where they suffer a little bit. They can't be great at everything, can they? So here we are. So top 50 with Emma Frost. This is Emma Frost pre-Diamond form. So that's the kind of equivalency there for his resistance. He is still a bit slow. They didn't change any of the character's speeds, so he's at 101 and Vision's at 113. Vision's not too bad. Iron Man's a little bit slow for a blaster, but he's kind of probably on par with Thor. I think he's somewhere around there too. Some notes for Iron Man. Bionic Avengers get 40% crit chance and 40% crit damage in raids. I'm not sure why there's a question mark there necessarily. I think it's because it's a bit weird the way that they state the passive for him. I want to go back to that really quick because it says 25%, oh sorry, allies gain 10% crit chance, okay? Tech allies gain additional 5%. Bionic Avengers gain an additional 5%. So it makes it sound like right off the bat, if they're Bionic Avengers, because they qualify for all of these, then they're 20%, and then in raids they're getting an additional 20% if they're Bionic Avengers. So that's how I read it. Let me know in the comments down below if you didn't read it how I read it, and that's how I took that. And then he gains 20% extra damage for 4 other Bionic Avengers. Now for Vision. His health is a little bit less. He is equivalent to Icarus, which is still very, very respectable for as far as new characters go and for reworks. So that puts him in the top 35. He's less, obviously, without the Hulkbuster passive. His damage, also pretty respectable in the Dr. Doom category, which is a top 20 damage stat. He's a controller, but, you know, he still might put out some decent damage because his punch on his basic does apply bleeds still, I'm pretty sure. So and his ult does bleeds. So this is actually a pretty respectable damage stat that might translate into some additional damage for the team. If this team gets a damage passive character, either through Vision or the unnamed 5th member, their damage stats are going to be off the charts. Just saying that you know, being top 5 for Iron Man and top 20 for Vision is already pretty good. If they get any damage passives on top of this, This is going to be Web Warriors on steroids in tech. I'm just saying that right now. Now, Cap-Sam... his armor is equivalent to Cap-Sam. He got a 30% buff, so that puts him into the top 15 category. Again, really respectable. Don't know if they're going to have any armor passes on any of the other characters, but I don't think they need that because of the barrier that they're getting from Hulkbuster. His focus, very high. Top 5 in the game alongside Dazzler. Dazzler also has a focus passive for the team and herself. So quite powerful there for a reworked character, and once again, the resistance is in the top 50 category. So that's pretty good. Other than the resistance, their stats are quite stellar for old characters, considering that they are not any of the new characters. So I'm very pleased to see this rework really just shoot it out of the park, and I'm really excited to see the improved damage on Iron Man. Now, some final notes that I want to say about the team. Obviously, Hulkbuster gives 25% max health, 50% in raids. He gives 30% barrier for the team in raids, so the survivability is going to be pretty good, despite, you know, the health is pretty respectable, but it's not like, I don't know, they're not all like top 10 characters, so this extra barrier is going to be very helpful for them. Hulkbuster does give 2 turns of speed up to Bionic Avengers allies, and there's tons of ability energy chucked out everywhere on this new team, making the cooldowns less of a problem. So I don't think that their cooldowns are particularly high as it sits. I think somewhere between 4 and 6 is pretty common for most of their skills. And so I think that this is going to come back around pretty frequently, which is going to make doing the raid nodes a little bit easier as well. Because sometimes what's really hard is micromanaging your ability energies to make sure that you have the cooldowns that you need for each additional node that you do. So I think this is going to make it a lot easier to get through it. But we'll have to wait and see, of course, when the team comes out. I'm super excited. I'm going to go all in, of course, because raid teams are super important, and I think that everyone else should focus on this as well. If you don't have 5 red on Vision already, I definitely think you should go and grab it. Same with Iron Man at this point. I think it's safe to say that their stats are going to be very good, and those red stars are a must. So that's the end of this video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. Finally, we're getting a tech raid team that we've always wanted, and I can't be happier. So let me know what your thoughts are on this down below. That's the end of the video, and until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon signing out.